So we're heading into the final weekend of international rugby, and Ryan, it's been quite an interesting November window of internationals. For me, it's been really encouraging just from a world rugby point of view to see how the Northern Hemisphere teams are performing. It just looks like a bit of a shake-up to perhaps a world order that we've become a bit too used to, where we can predict results with certainty. And I really think, you know, Scotland put up a brave fight against the Boks. We've seen improvement with them. France as well have done the same thing. England, obviously the Boks last two, but most encouragingly, look at Ireland producing one of the performances, I think, of the whole year to beat the All Blacks, and they, by all accounts and by many media outlets, being regarded as perhaps the world's best team in current form.
Yeah, long gone are the days where the Northern Hemisphere teams were the whooping boys of world rugby. I mean, that time is long gone now. Ireland have been building this particular team for a while. I remember watching them in, I think it was 2012 against the Boks at the Viva Stadium, and thinking that there's something special brewing there. And they've done a fantastic job to build that team to the point where I think Saturday was really like the defining moment in that core group's journey to date, beating I felt the world's best team, and in the way that they done it was really impressive. And I know some of the Irish media and some of the former Ireland players claiming that they're the best team in the world now. I mean, there's an argument to be made for that, you know. They've consistently pushed the All Blacks hard, year in, year out, and there's definitely an argument to be made for that. But broadly speaking, the point you raise is so valid. Like, not for a long time, as long as I can remember now, has the landscape been populated with as many good teams globally as it is now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Rassie Erasmus talking this week and saying that he reckons the World Cup will be an open race, and I think he has a fair point. I still think we'll have about 5 teams that you can say realistically will have a chance of winning it. But the fact is, when it comes to playoff rugby and quarterfinal, semi-final, and a final, there's always that chance of a team hitting form on that day, or perhaps the favourite having an off day, and we could see some really big surprises in Japan. It just makes things quite exciting leading up to that tournament, whereas perhaps maybe 12 months ago we would have gone All Blacks outright favourites. In fact, one of the New Zealand rugby writers wrote, you know, earlier this year, just hand the All Blacks the World Cup right now. So I think those words now suddenly haven't aged particularly well, because I think Ireland are right up there, and some of the, you know, I think the Boks will also be strong contenders, and a couple of other Northern Hemisphere teams as well.
Yeah, those are premature words about the All Blacks. I mean, look, there's no doubt that they, in my view, probably still the best team in the world, looking kind of holistically and based on their consistency over the last couple of years. But yeah, look, the World Cup for me, again, personally, I don't place a lot of stock in it, because there's so many variables that could determine the winner in that tournament. And so the winner of that tournament, I mean, they gain global bragging rights and all of that type of thing. But for me, that should be seen as the best team of the course of those 7 weeks, right? As opposed to the best team in the world over a consistent period of time. It can come down to a refereeing decision, like it has so many times in the past, and the All Blacks will tell you that, or like you say, on a particular day you just don't rock up, and then there's so many other teams outside of the group that we're speaking about now that can be kingmakers. You know, like, I mean, we've seen Japan pull off shock wins, and their ilk really determining how those pools shape ultimately, and determining who plays who in the quarterfinal. And then it becomes a whole different ball game again, because one bad day in the pool phase could have you up against the likes of the All Blacks or Ireland or that type of thing. So yeah, the World Cup for me is a great spectacle, and I enjoy watching it. But it's just 7 weeks of that. I'd like to judge the world's best team over the course of in the cycle between those World Cups. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. But to focus in on the Boks and their performances against Scotland, you know, I thought they'd win more comfortably. but that's also credit to Scotland. But the things that I was pleased about looking at the Boks performance was number one, Embrose Papier's performance at number 9. I thought he, for such a young guy starting his first test match, I thought he looked really composed. He had one kick that really just went up and down and didn't go anywhere. But beyond that, I thought generally he looked really cool and composed in that position. And to a degree, we've seen Faf de Klerk not having to be rushed back for this last game. Such has been the performance of Papier, which I think was greatly encouraging. And then beyond that, I actually, the game hung in the balance after an hour, and it was a bit of a weird one where you didn't really know which way it was going to go. And I just looked at the way the Boks closed that out, and they looked far more composed in that final quarter. The substitutes came on and made an impact, and the Boks played almost quite a clever game during that period to really just close that game out and to not even give Scotland a sniff in that final decisive period. That's a sign of a team that's kind of building a bit of confidence, I think.
Absolutely, and that was the progression on the England game, right? They didn't close that one out through good game management. France nearly looked a similar situation. They seemed panicked. And in key moments in that game, they didn't make the right decision. Ultimately, they pulled it through there, and that was massive character, and we celebrated that. But that Scotland game showed a progression on those 2 weeks, right? So the way they dominated territory, especially, they forced Scotland to score a wonder try if they were going to get themselves back into that game. And they didn't make mistakes and concede penalties in key areas. Again, a progression on the 2 weeks before that. And the game management, and this is so critical, and that shows, that one, Rassie's and his coaching staff's philosophy and instructions are starting to take root. But more than that the senior players are driving that process from within. You could see senior players, the way they communicated to the young guys around them on Saturday. Stay calm, do this, play here. And I always thought the key to that is when the Boks play close. I mean, I tweeted about it during the game, and when the Boks hammer it up through the phases and they keep it close and they earn the right to play wide, then they look formidable. But as soon as they become panicked and try to create something out of nothing, they give up teams opportunities to score against them, to counter them. And for me, that was so encouraging.
Yeah, and I think just moving forward to look at the final game of the year, which will be against Wales, and probably a team that we haven't mentioned when we've been speaking of the Northern Hemisphere sides, but even they won, if I'm not mistaken, 8 games on the trot. And Erasmus has spoken of them being their toughest game on tour, which is a great credit to them and Warren Gatland, a really astute coach who has been in charge of the British and Irish Lions before. So I think it's going to be another really tight game, and again, one where the Boks need to show that evolution to finish off the year with another victory that it'll take their win percentage to nearly 60%. And I think if they get 3 out of 4 wins on tour, it will certainly leave them with the argument that it's been a successful year. I think it's crucial that they get the win, and it's why I think they will pick probably their strongest available team.
Yeah, no question. This is critical in the sense that you end the tour 3 from 4 with the England test. I mean, the Boks know they should have won that one as well, and then kind of shows you some progression. A 2 from 4 return is kind of like we're there, but we're not really there, and so I understand what Rassie is speaking about with regards to Wales. They're a good side. Gatland has been in charge for a long time. You can see they know exactly what they're wanting to do and how to go about doing that. And so when people speak about the All Blacks DNA in Wales, I think this part that's partly true, but Wales have never been a conservative side. And so I mean, those things are all critical. They're a really, really good side, and the results bear testimony to that. But still, I think the progression that the Boks have shown from France through to Scotland has been enough for me to think that they could do it in Cardiff this weekend. And so the quality of the performance is important to me. But the result is more important. I want to see them play well and beat Wales, because again, that speaks to being able to replicate your tactical philosophy week in and week out. And those are the things that define Ireland, right? Those are the things that define New Zealand. They can do it week in and week out. And so that's the progression I want to see from the Boks. That the performance that we kind of put another brick in the wall in terms of moving towards the vision that Rassie has for this team. And so performance is critical for me, but I do think that they can beat Wales.
Yeah, and just moving to a prediction, I do think it's a bit unfortunate that I think there are 8 players who've gone on tour who might, not get much of a run. But it's just the nature, I think, of this team building towards the World Cup. We spoke about it last week. I think the starting 15 is pretty much set in stone, barring any drastic changes in form or fitness. And I think what they want now is just, as you said, to put another building block in place, finish the year well, and then move towards the 2019. They only will have a handful of games before that World Cup arrives. So I think this game is quite critical in terms of where they finish the year and just the momentum that they'll take into the World Cup year. For me, I think we'll see them play a very pragmatic approach against Wales. They know it'll be a proper test match with a team that is really astute with their tactics under that coach like Gatland, who Wales will play proper test match rugby and really the proper the strengths that require grinding it out in a battle of attrition. So I think they'll know that they've got to be careful and wary of that. And for me, I still think they'll just have the edge up front, the necessary firepower to get a win of about 5 to 8.
Yeah, so before my prediction, just picking up on a point you made about players that went on tour that are not getting, that won't get capped or may not get capped. That's life, man. This is professional sport, right? It's not a charity event. And I felt in so many instances in the past, we've used the end of year tour as a charity cap handing ceremony. And where the objective should always be to win every test. And I understand the importance of blooding young talent and that type of thing, but it's not like they regress because they're not going to get a cap for the Springboks. Being in that environment, training with the elite players in their country day in and day out is critical. And is all part of the education. So this thinking that they need to play to develop is absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's a critical part of the development, and sure, they've got to be given opportunities going forward. But in this current context, with a coach that's looking to establish again his tactical philosophy and to get wins under his belt, to build confidence in his side, it's not an important thing, in my view. Onto the test, I agree with you. I think across that front across that front 8, we've got an edge on Wales there. The key is again to build in a pragmatic way, and not to get drawn into. So I mean, the way I see the test unfolding is 2 teams that are quite similar in their philosophy as well. They'll keep pinging the ball onto the back 3 and then going like, okay, we back our defense. What are you going to do? And the team that panics will run it from the back and try and play expansively when the response really should be a pragmatic one. And people will complain about a kick fest and that type of thing, but it's the nature of test rugby. Whoever folds first in those situations then end up making the mistakes that cost them the game. So I'd like to see us play like an ultra pragmatic brand of rugby, force Wales to betray their tactical philosophy, to run it back, to isolate runners, where the likes of Malcolm Marx, our back 3, can then exploit them at the breakdown. And for us to keep pounding it through the phases, getting the ball in the hands of your Kitsoffs, your Malcolm Marx, and pounding it up through the phases and pinning them back and then attacking their line out. Because I think that will be a crucial part of what happens, where this test is decided. So I'm going with a 5 to 7 point win for the Boks, and here's hoping it's a 3 from 4 return for us.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think, like we say, it's not the end of year test match or the last test match of the year where it's just a throwaway or 1 foot on the plane. I think it's a critical game in terms of how we look back at this year.